Action.
His lips remained in that sincere expression, the like of which Bertrand had never seen from a calculating face.
Which one did you do?
No words.
So I did him.
Right, so I think moving forward, I'm going to try to do, I'm introducing this, like Warhammer and fantasy, sci-fi related stuff to my channel. Nerds with muscles. Marines painting Marines. And I'm trying to find, like, what's the right ratio of, because obviously this is a fitness channel, powerlifting, men's fitness, men's health. Yeah. But it's also something that I'm very much into, and I'm getting a lot of good and some bad response to it. I have discovered a demographic, and that is people that are into Warhammer, fantasy, sci-fi, who also want to get yoked. That's fitness related. You're looking at them. That's right. I'm your man. We'll get you where you want to be. So that's the target demographic that I'm trying to bring into the fold, because they're not mutually exclusive. You can be into Magic the Gathering and deadlift 800 pounds. There's no reason why you can't do both. You know what I mean? Likewise, maybe you're not into training and you're more into fantasy or whatever. It's like all are welcome here. We don't care about race. We don't care about gender. We don't care about any of that stuff. We're all about getting into shape, becoming better men, and expressing our interest and showing what we're into off. So I'm going to try this out, and I'm trying to do a ratio of 3 or 4 to 1. So for every few videos that I do that are normal content, maybe one of these. I don't know. I'm still messing with it. Do I create a second channel? That's a lot for me to manage, man. I'm still one-man army. I'm still doing all this myself, all the video editing, and it's like, can I keep track of a second channel? Is it hard? Maybe I'm making it harder than it needs to be. I don't know. I want to hear from you guys. So you tell me what you think. For my regular users, is this content you enjoy? Do you like it when I make these rant videos, when I talk about stuff other than weightlifting? I mean, to me, it's all related, because it's all just part of who I am as a person. I'm a Marine, and I paint Marines. Ha! Oh, real quick. What I'm showcasing here is one of the Drukhari that I have. I got the two armies that I play with, actually play the tabletop with. I have the Salamanders and the Sisters of Battle. Those are the two complete armies I have that are points adequate to actually run. And then I've got some small squad-based stuff, that I can run. But I am also really heavy into just painting. So I have representation from just about every single faction, and I have them in all these boxes. And I wanted to showcase some of the females that I've been working on, and I got these elves that I'm painting, and I got Sisters of Battle, and I have these Drukhari, which I've been looking at for a long time. They've been sitting on my desk, so I try one out, and she is a pain in the butt. I had the hardest time painting her because the details are so tiny, and I kept messing them up and having to go over it, and oh my god, it was a nightmare. Not fun to paint. If you're going to start out with something simple. That being said, the topic of today's discussion, I got this comment from Mr. Bonyboy1, and this is about my 40k goes full woke rant. DEI retcon, that video. He says, and it's a little bit of a longer comment, he says, I get a lot of where you're coming from, and certainly no one wants to feel villainized, which is often a side effect when trying to make things more inclusive. But I think it's important to realize that while it does sometimes happen, it's not the goal, usually, and companies have been losing money at a rapid pace across the board long before the rise of woke, and the new trend is an attempt to bring more young people as their main demographic ages. I understand how you feel, and I think you've done a great job explaining your point of view. Thank you. I just hope you can read a comment from a woke 40k player like myself and maybe consider that the new changes, while occasionally stupid, I'm a supporter of trans, and I think that the retcon is dumb as well. I'm glad you agree on that, because it's yeah. And are not trying to attack and get rid of people, but an attempt to include more people, even though I do agree in many cases it's a poor attempt. So, as far as me being inclusive, dude, I include everybody. You can, anybody that's willing to talk to me, you come join me. You know, you're invited to my house as far as I'm concerned, and we'll set up a table and we'll play a game. And I think it's important that they do try to bring in younger demographics, which is going to include some pretty wacky stuff. Every generation's got their thing, and I'm starting to feel like that old guy, like, back in my day, god damn it, we are these kids these days, hey. And I'm sure they said the same thing about us, man. I grew up in the 80s, and we had some the styles we used to wear. They'd be like, you seen the kids these days? Jesus. Every generation, it's the same thing. The older generation bags on the younger does all this crazy stuff. But the one thing that's different, or at least it feels different about today's generations, is they have there's a political push behind it. So, you know, these kids are innocent to all this. They don't have any dog in the fight as far as like what legislation get passed. I remember being a Marine on a deployment when they were talking about passing the Patriot Act, and I was so naive to politics. What came out of my mouth was, well, I ain't got nothing to hide. I don't care if they spy on me. They're just going to be watching me masturbate, probably. And like, if you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to worry about. I said that. That was my sentiment. I agreed with the Patriot Act because we were all talking. They sold it as like, oh, the terrorists are going to come get us, give away your freedoms. 20 years later, I look back at what my generation did to this country, and I was like, ugh. We just sold ourselves down the river. We basically gave the government permission to spy on us and run our lives and insert themselves, and we did that. And now you got the same things happening, but they're using race, gender, sexuality as a push to change legislation and affect free speech and take more of our freedoms away. And now that I'm a little bit older and I've been through this and I see clearly what's going on, that's kind of what we're railing against. It's not necessarily that they're making the change, it's why they're making the change, and that's the argument we keep trying to make. But it does kind of make us come off as exclusionary, and you know, maybe some of us are. For me, how do I feel about it personally? I don't understand why it's relevant. Like, why does it matter what your sexuality is in any of these stories? And that's to include straight people. I don't want to read a bunch of grim, dark lore where space marines are, you know, having shower scenes with the Astartes. I mean, that's what the fan fiction's for. And there's a niche for that, and it's kind of, you know, yeah, I do like seeing some of the hentai art and all that. It's kind of fun, but I wouldn't want that to be the focus. It's like, it was never a focus before. Why is it a focus now? It's like, I don't want the lore to read like a Harlequin novel, and I don't care what you do with your genitals in the privacy of your own home. That's your business. Like, why does it need to be the focus? Why is that the focus why is that anybody's main focus? And this whole need to be represented, we never needed to be represented before. I look at all of my favorite superheroes and all the comic books I collected and all the stories we used to read. Never once did I have the thought, well, I don't feel like I'm included in this story. It was not about me. They were well-written stories, and the characters were compelling, and you wanted to see what they were getting up to. Now, the psychological need to identify, you know, there's maybe that, but I don't know. I feel like this whole need to be represented by the media that we consume is a new thing, and it's extremely narcissistic. And I'm telling you guys, if you have a well-written story and it revolves around the character arcs, and you just don't need any of this stuff. It just doesn't need to be in there. We don't even need to be having this discussion. It shouldn't matter what your sexuality is, your race, your gender. None of that. None of that. It should be totally 100% irrelevant. All should be included, 100%. Nobody should be turned away. And it's not our goal, it's not my goal to turn anybody away. I don't want to do that. No, man. Come as you are. Just, look, whatever you're into, you're into. Whatever I'm into, I'm into. If we want to have that discussion and get to know each other, I'm perfectly fine with that. But it just doesn't need to be inserted into what is considered our escapism. Does that make sense? Am I making that argument well? I don't know, because people keep coming back to, you just don't want women in your space. What? That's the gaslighting. The comments, I could go over. I got 20 of them right now. You know what I mean? I'm sure I'll get 20 more with this video. So I think the crux of the problem, from what I've seen, is almost across the board, these companies, they make these DEI pushes, and they try to bring in these new demographics, like you were saying, but they do it at the expense of the existing fan base, and they demonize the existing fan base because we don't agree with it. And there's really no other choice but to do that. But in doing so, they're failing to realize that there's not enough of a new base to bring in to make them profitable. So they wind up basically just hemorrhaging money. Once they've turned away enough of the existing fan base and they demonize us and they push us out of the space, they tank. And I have a theory that I think Amazon, I could be wrong, but what do you guys think about this one? I think Amazon wants Games Workshop to tank. They want them to make these changes, especially with this new Henry Cavill stuff that's coming out. And they'll buy them. They'll wait till the stock tanks and they're at a point where they can go in and purchase them. And now you got Amazon will own Games Workshop or some other big company or conglomerate. Yeah, and that seems to be what's happened. Like look how many companies, Disney, Microsoft, how many they've bought and sold, and they've basically absorbed all these game studios, and then they've dismantled just as many of them. And across the board, there's no small creators anymore. They just get bought up, and I would hardly call Games Workshop a small creator, but it looks like they're poisoning themselves for a nice takeover. And then what will we be left with? By then it'll be completely irrelevant. Then Amazon can do whatever they want with the IP. You know what I mean? That's a tinfoil hat theory I've got. The other main difference, as far as I can tell, is when the existing fan base, us, get pushed out of a space, the ones that they're bringing in, the people that need to be represented, they're happy to see it. They're like, yeah, good, go, get rid of them. Let's get rid of all of them. Get rid of all the incel chuds. And where we don't want to exclude anybody. We're happy to have more people. We're happy to have the younger guys come in. We're happy to sit across the table from anybody. We want more people to participate. We just want you to respect the lore that we grew up with. And you could say, well, it's not yours. Well, it kind of is, man. It kind of is. The people that have been doing this stuff, we built the company with them. We evolved with them. We gave them our money, and we gave them a lot of it. A lot of money. You cannot start a 2,000 point army in Warhammer for under, I would say, $1,000, 500 maybe. I don't. Well, if you buy it used, yeah, you can. I mean, there's ways to do it, but you can't like MSRP an army for under $1,000. There's just no way. So it is a huge time and a huge expense, and we did all that, and they're just gutting us like we don't matter, and that's what it feels like. It's very insulting to put all that time and effort and money, and to grow with something over the years, just to be told that you're the problem and you don't matter, and goodbye, we don't need you. Wow, really? Really? Man, that's, hey, capitalism, do what you want. But then what happens? You guys suffer the consequences because it's just not profitable. The demographics you're trying to bring in don't spend money. They just don't. All they care about are the politics. That's it. I'm looking at these forums. I'm looking at these socialist Games Workshop forums. And it's all political. They don't care. They don't purchase the products. They don't play the games. All they do is argue over politics. And what are you left with then? I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like a winning formula. But I do appreciate your comment because it is an attempt to establish discourse, and that's what it's all about. We need to sit down and we need to have dialogue. We need to try to understand each other. I had to read your comment a few times to make sure that before I spoke about it, I understood the point you were trying to make. And I think there's not a lot of that these days. People shoot. They see something and they immediately react to it, and it just becomes this. It just evolves into like poop throwing. A bunch of chimpanzees throwing poop at each other. That's what the comment section usually is. And while I derive great pleasure from taking those comments and making content out of it, it isn't helpful. It doesn't do anything to further one's cause or make the situation any better. At the end of the day, it's just entertaining. I think what you're doing is an attempt at actually having a meaningful discussion. And I appreciate that. I really do. And I think you'll find that underneath it all, you and I are probably not nearly as different as we think we are. I think we might disagree on some, fundamental things like responsibility of the government or the role of family or religion, maybe things of that nature. But I'm willing to bet that our day-to-day struggles are pretty similar, and we're probably reasonably aligned on those things. That's what I find, that in real life, no matter how different politically people say they are, when I talk to them in real life, I find that our day-to-day stuff is pretty much the same thing. We all deal with the same issues. We just have different ideas about how to fix things. And when you get a group of us together and they start getting loud, that's when it becomes dangerous. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I try to be responsible with the ideas that I espouse, and I try to be as honest as possible, and I try to stand by the principles I espouse. And I'm by no means perfect, but at the end of the day, I don't know, I think that's what we need, is people that are willing to stand by their word and live by the things that come out of their mouth. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, I'm finding it difficult to make videos of, like, you set the camera up and you paint, and it's like, how do you make that interesting? I've been watching a lot of other channels that do like focus on painting specifically, and they do tutorials, trying to get ideas as to how they set the cameras up and the lighting and all that. Like, I'm just one dude in a garage. I've got a nice setup for my garage. Can be a bunch of different things at any given time. Right now it's set up for painting and lifting weights, but if all I got to do is move all the stuff off the workbench, and I can set up a mill. I got a router built into this table. I've got a 5.5 horsepower compressor that runs pneumatic tools. I can have a full automotive shop in minutes. All I got to do is move my half rack out of the way and put some mats down, and I get your car in here and we can start tearing it apart. I can do fabrication. So at any given time, my garage is set up, but it's kind of tossed together. It's very haphazard. I'm not really set up for any one specific focus. And that's like me, I'm all over the place. I'm into so many different things that it pretty much represents me as a person. So it'll probably stay that way for some time. But I don't know. I'm just a man with a camera, and I'm doing the best I can to present an interesting presentation for you guys. So please do let me know how you feel about this stuff, because I don't get a lot of feedback. So I'm just looking at the likes, dislikes, how many views I get, the amount of comments I respond to, and I'm just trying to shoot from the hip. And if I see something and I get a good response from it, I'm going to keep doing it, especially if it's something I'm interested in. But if I find that I don't want to do it at the expense of like the demographics that I built up to this point, even though I am a small channel, I feel super close with all of my subscribers. So I'm going to go by what you guys tell me. Let me know. In the meantime, I got to get to work, so I will see you guys on the battlefield.